For this craft, you want to start with a red dollar store placemat and some white chalk paint, and you're just going to paint all the way around the edge of the placemat. So what I did is I skipped that first row and then I painted the second row. I just used a flat 1-inch paintbrush. This is plain white Rust-Oleum chalk paint. And then I ended up painting all the way around the placemat, but then I realized I'm only going to use half the placemat for my project, so you really only need to paint half, but it's up to you. And then once that white chalk paint had dried, I went in with my green chalk paint and a 1/2-inch flat paintbrush, and I alternated between dark green and light green. If you can't tell, we're making a watermelon. So it takes a little bit, so I'm going to speed this up pretty fast, but just alternate light green, dark green all the way around. And then I wasn't thrilled with how this color was showing up, so I actually went back with a fine point paintbrush and I filled in any areas that where some of the red was poking through. I wanted really solid coverage of my paint here. I also did the same thing with a fine point paintbrush and the white chalk paint. I really wanted like bright, crisp color on this project. And then I knew I was going to be cutting this. So in an abundance of caution, I was afraid that the placemat was going to fray. So I just took some matte Mod Podge and I did a coat all over the back of the placemat. It made the placemat really rigid and easier to cut later on, and then I didn't have any fraying, which I was kind of worried about. Then this is a spring wall sign, and I've shared this hack before in my seasonal frame hack. But what I do is I take a piece of foam board and I measure it to fit right inside that wood frame, and then I cut it down to size. So you're going to see here, I cut it a little bigger than it needed to be. You can always trim it down later, but you want it to fit really snug inside your frame. I'm going to link to my full video. I'm not going to show you exactly how I did it. You can watch that video later. But what I did is I cut my little poster board down to size, and then I wrapped it with this decorative paper. So this is from Hobby Lobby, and it's for cork boards, for teachers, like the big rolls of paper. You can use gift wrap, any type of decorative paper. And then, so now this spring sign, we're going to turn it into a summer sign. And so for that, all I did is I took my dried, painted and Mod Podged placemat and I cut my little watermelon slices. So just plain craft scissors. And I kind of played around with this a little bit, thinking I want different size watermelon slices. How do I want this layout to look? And I ended with this layout with 3 slices of watermelon, and then I just cut "Life is Sweet" on my Cricut. You could paint the letters, you could get pre-cut little mini wooden letters from the craft store, glue those down, but I just hot glued each watermelon slice to my little sign. And then when I transferred my letters, I was really afraid that if I used regular transfer tape, it would peel part of the paper away. So I used contact paper. It's a lot more gentle, and because these are big pieces without major detail, you can get away with using contact paper instead of transfer tape. But then I got all my vinyl laid down, and then I just grabbed some black chalk paint, acrylic craft paint, whatever you want, fine point paintbrush, and I painted in my little watermelon seeds there. Super cute. And then I finished by making a scrappy ribbon. So I just cut a bunch of pieces of like white mesh, red, dark green, black and white buffalo check, and red and white buffalo check ribbon. You lay it in a pile at all different angles, and then you pinch it in the center. We're just making a super scrappy ribbon, no bows here, or no bow loops, no tidy bow loops, just super scrappy. And then I just grabbed some twine. It's like a white and silver twine, wrap it around a few times, secure it with a double knot in the back, and then finish it off by hot gluing that to the top of your sign, and you have a cute little Life is Sweet summer watermelon sign that you can hang anywhere. And then for next season, pop that foam board out and pop in a new one for fall.